They failed to appear. On the day of my wedding, my parents consciously elected to remain at their residence. As I stood awaiting my entrance, my veil slightly trembling, my heart resonating with anticipation, the individuals who were structurally required to stand by my side, the ones designated to formally relinquish me, were utterly absent. Their justification, my sister Olivia, was concurrently hosting a casual social gathering at the house, an event apparently deemed of greater significance than my solemn vows, surpassing the entire defining trajectory of my adult life. The musical overture swelled. My lower limbs felt as immutable as cold stone. My fiancée, now my wife, Eleanor, gripped my hand with unprecedented firmness, murmuring, "Their presence is not requisite, however." The profound absence had indelibly etched itself within my inner consciousness. I presented a brilliant facade for the photographers, participated in the ceremonial humor, and offered toasts to perpetuity, all while my parents were presumably engaging in convivial drinking and laughter in my sister's living room, systematically acting as if their eldest offspring did not even exist. I should not have experienced surprise. My sister has consistently occupied the role of the golden child. I was merely the peripheral, shadow, dutiful, reserved, regularly overlooked. She incurred numerous liabilities, and they provided immediate fiscal and emotional indemnification. She inflicted emotional damage, and they aggressively defended her. I constructed my life brick by deliberate brick, entirely through my own efforts. Yet, I persisted as the perpetual outsider. But on that pivotal day, as I surveyed the assembled congregation, observing individuals drawn from every facet of my autonomous life, faces that were notably influential and meticulously watchful, I made an irrevocable determination. I would not concede to tears. I would not supplicate. I would not pursue the scant affection they proffered like discarded sustenance. Instead, I would provide an unequivocal demonstration of the consequences of underestimating my resolve. The retaliatory strategy necessitated zero emotional volatility. It required only clinical precision, absolute silence, and sustained patience. Following the conclusion of the reception, I discreetly withdrew from the celebratory dance floor and presented the meticulously documented guest list to the singular individual who held paramount importance, my wife. She executed a minor elevation of an eyebrow, then adopted a slow, knowing smirk, instantaneously comprehending the strategic gravity of the names. And these individuals were not merely acquaintances from my youth. They were not simply distant familial connections. They were potent strategic allies. These were figures of considerable influence whom my parents had slighted, shown disrespect, or overtly wronged throughout the years. The roster included prominent political figures, high-level corporate executives, a municipal magistrate who was indebted to me for a significant personal favor. It even featured the current chairman of the specific homeowners association that had been actively attempting to legally dislodge my parents. Due to their chronic arrogance, every single reciprocal handshake exchanged at my wedding had been a calculated maneuver. Every glass elevated in the formal toast represented another decisive stroke against the foundation of my parents' manufactured social superiority. The following morning, I arrived at my parents' residence. My sister's discarded party detritus still lay offensively dispersed across the floor, empty glassware, scattered confetti, the residual atmosphere of their recent amusement. They opened the entry door with complacent, self-satisfied expressions, clearly anticipating me to be visibly distressed, perhaps even aggressively demanding an apology. "You deliberately absented yourselves from my wedding," I stated with complete composure. My sister offered a slight smirk. "We simply possessed engagements of greater imperative." My father firmly folded his arms across his chest. "You will achieve comprehension someday." But their understanding was entirely deficient. Not yet. I positioned the substantial wedding album centrally on the coffee table and deliberately slid it toward them. Page after page displayed compelling photographs. Me, radiating confidence and undeniable achievement, encircled by powerful individuals they had spent years fruitlessly attempting to cultivate favor with, and there I was, fully embraced, celebrated, and actively chosen by this powerful cohort. I observed the precise instant their misplaced confidence suffered a catastrophic failure. My mother's hand exhibited a noticeable tremor as she attempted to turn a page. Her lips parted, but coherent speech failed to materialize. My father's complexion was utterly drained of color as he began to recognize specific faces, individuals he had once haughtily dismissed as unattainable, were now pictured. Smiling warmly beside me, my sister, initially confused, leaned in closer. Who was concerned with the collection of then the recognition became undeniable. The judge, the CEO, the powerful investors, the very people who, through a singular telephonic instruction, possessed the authority to establish or irrevocably dismantle reputations, commercial enterprises, and lives. Individuals who were now unequivocally aligned with me, not with them. "You did not merely marry your wife," my father whispered, his voice sounding hollow and profoundly demoralized. "You strategically married into immense power." I leaned forward, my voice remaining low but entirely deliberate. "No, I architected this power. She merely served as the anchor while I definitively claimed it." They then resorted to desperate appeals. Not overt pleas for my forgiveness, but expressions of profound distress conveyed through pale complexions, tremulous language, and ineffectual apologies. They began speaking erratically of family obligation, of tradition, of simple communicative failures. Yet, their eyes betrayed their true objective. What they truly desired was unrestricted access, continued connection, a fabricated bridge back into the influential social strata they had spent decades unsuccessfully striving to penetrate. I allowed them to remain in their discomfort. I permitted them to fully experience the bitter, inescapable truth. They had sacrificed my seminal life event for a trivial party, but I had permanently replaced their presence with an empire of influence. My sister's characteristic arrogance immediately dissolved into silence. For once, there were no facile comebacks. No condescending laughter, only the crushing realization that her entire personal safety net, predicated on our parents' blind favoritism, was utterly inconsequential against the overwhelming strategic weight I now commanded. I rose, meticulously smoothing my attire, and proceeded toward the exit. Before stepping across the threshold, I addressed them one final time. "You failed to present me at my wedding," I stated quietly, each syllable delivered with sharp, surgical precision, "and consequently, my allegiance to you is now irrevocably terminated." The door closed firmly behind me, permanently solidifying the spatial and emotional distance. As I stepped into the unfiltered sunlight, I experienced no residual pain, no yearning, no lingering desperation for their approval, only absolute crystalline clarity. They had definitively shown me where their loyalty lay, and I had definitively shown them the true, profound measure of their resulting loss. Vengeance does not invariably require destructive fire or overt fury. Sometimes it manifests as a simple photograph, a meticulously assembled group of powerful witnesses, and a life lived so far beyond their attainable reach that the only remaining emotion for them is perpetual, inescapable regret. And as I held my wife's hand, I finally attained comprehension. The inherent power was not derived from orchestrating their suffering. The true power resided in the absolute certainty that they would spend the rest of their lives wishing they had chosen a different path.